I don't stand side by side with nobody till I bleed with them first.
What did we just see? You probably think this world is a dream come true.
When I step into this ring, yeah, bro, I am addicted.
Don't sleep on Luca!
Maybe tomorrow we'll all wear 42.
If you fight for your dreams will fight for you.
The 2023 MLB season has begun. And where do I even begin when it comes to my team? My team, of course, is the Phillies, and man, I guess really the only way to describe the start of this season is. But on a more serious note, it's been a pretty disappointing start to the season, and we'll get into the games, but I first kind of want to discuss just, thoughts heading into the season, thoughts about the team overall, some predictions I might have. And it is here I just want to say that if you weren't familiar with my previous work on my other previous podcasts where I had a subsection for sports, I covered the Phillies from here and there, and especially during the playoffs. I covered the Eagles game by game, and these videos when I'm discussing the games and not necessarily all the sports, but at least when it's going to come to the Phillies and the Eagles specifically, it's going to be a bit more podcast type video. It's not going to be like the video. It's still similar to the video essay style, but it's more so, you're going to see it's more similar to a podcast, as it's more me just naturally talking out my thoughts on the game, talking about it, and less about, story point A to story point B. But so, yeah, getting into the season, big signee, of course, in the offseason was Trey Turner coming over from the Dodgers. 11-year contract, 300-something million, if I remember correctly. So, upgraded at shortstop, started moving people around a bit. We moved Bryson Stott to second base, as I believe that's where he was. If I remember correctly, him and Gene Segura kind of swapped places time to time, but Stott, I think, was mainly second base because Segura was shortstop. And then Bryce Harper had surgery, so we're waiting to see when he comes back. And then, of course, the biggest heartbreak, which it is a heartbreak. Don't listen to any of those random Philly fans who were trying to say it was a good thing for the team. But Rhys Hoskins tearing his ACL, I believe it was, in the spring training game. I think it was like one of the final game of spring training. He tears his ACL on a non-contact play. Absolutely terrible, especially for this team, as if some people want to say rightfully so labeled inconsistent as Rhys Hoskins was, especially last season. And though he kind of struck fire in the postseason until, the final two series, really, he still plays a pivotal role on this team. Like, there's nothing more I can say except, losing a player like him, especially right before the season, really hurts this team. And so those were sort of the main things coming into this season. And when it comes to Trey Turner, obviously an upgrade, especially watching him perform in the World Baseball Classic. It's obvious, it's an obvious upgrade to our team. But to me, when I was thinking through about what my expectations were going to be for this season, can't say it was any better than last season's. Now, last season, we won 87 games, and obviously through that wild card spot, I think it was the final wild card spot, we went on that magical run to the World Series. But, I still see the Phillies being in a similar position this season where, I think maybe they can win, after these past 4 games. Obviously it's just the start of the season, but if you want to be pessimistic, you might not think so, but I think they could easily win close to that, and even maybe a couple more games above that. But I still think they'll be that third place team when it comes to the NL East. It's just the Braves and Mets kind of have more complete rosters, and that's especially been showcased through our 4 games, that we are nowhere close to a complete roster. So obviously, I think the goal for this team is to, at least right now in the beginning of the season, Obviously, these first 4 games weren't a part of this plan, but you want to remain competitive enough so that when Bryce returns, you can really kick into another gear and hopefully, really get that wild card spot and hope to get hot again in the postseason, because that's really all that matters, is making the postseason and then what you do from there, which the Phillies displayed last year. But can't say I expect them to be, second in the NL East, first in the NL East, not with the Braves and Mets there. And I think that's just being realistic. Those are 2 really good teams, and like I said, they're more complete, and that was especially demonstrated in these first 4 games of the season, which absolutely weren't the way any of us wanted it to start. I mean, going into it, the Rangers kind of made some moves in the offseason. They signed Jacob deGrom. And then, of course, going against the Yankees with Aaron Judge and everyone else, that's on that team, Stanton, Rizzo, it wasn't going to be easy, So I kind of knew, I was like, it's going to be a tough start to the season, but I still had hope, I was like, they can ride off that momentum from last season. I know it was months ago at this point, but they can ride off that momentum really well. And so we get into the first game, and here's what I'll say now. Also, when it comes to this Philly series, I don't want to full on say it and commit to it, because time and scheduling could always change. But I hope to do at least like 1 video a week covering like a Phillies recap, because that's what I did for the Eagles. Obviously, football is easier to do week by week because it's the 1 game. Versus the Phillies playing like 5 games, 5-6 games in a week, or something like that. But so the commitment I kind of want to try and make is that each week I will at least watch 1 game fully and listen in on another. And then, if I have time, I'm gonna watch like multiple games, but like there's gonna be games where like I'm solely focusing on, because this was the one out of the week I watched, and this was one that I listened in on, and then the other ones that I didn't get to catch are like short recaps about them, but still being able to talk about it, because obviously it's my team. I want to be the most involved. And so we started off with the first game of the season, which obviously I watched. This was Thursday, March 30th, and I planned to talk about the opening game like the day after on that Friday, but I ended up going to a wrestling event, which there will be a video talking about a certain match on that wrestling event later on. But yeah, so I didn't get to do it, and as time went on, just kept getting busy, so I had to wait till today to record this video on opening day. But starting off with the game, we're at the Rangers, we're at Texas, and have Aaron Nola on the mound again. 6th straight season that Aaron Nola opens the Phillies season, and what more can you ask? Nola's our ace, or at least that's what you want to say, until you see games like this where I maybe some people are gonna disagree with me on this, and maybe like in my mind I'm thinking it's this pitch clock where it's kind of messing with both sides of things. But people were saying, Aaron Nola like always has like this one random like inning where he just hits a wall and suddenly starts collapsing. I'm not trying to be overly I'm not trying to be overly critical of the guy, but it almost seemed like he was hitting that wall in inning number 1. I don't know if my eyes just aren't the best, and obviously like I'm gonna say this now. I've obviously been following baseball for a while, but like last season and the season before, last season, the season before was like the 2 seasons where I was like really starting to get into it the way I am into football, where it's like I started learning all the rules, started learning all the stats and all that, and what each stats means. Now I'm still a rookie in it, I'm still trying to learn, and obviously I have a good friend who is well versed in baseball helping me out. But so maybe I'm just not the best at like recognizing this stuff, but I don't know. In that first inning, Nola was throwing a couple of wonky pitches, like there was like times where I swear he wasn't even getting it in the box, and it wasn't like, you know, these pitches where he was trying to fake out the guy and get him to swing on a ball. A lot of times they were just not good balls. Like there was a couple of times where like he grounded them to Real Muto, and like you could see Real Muto kind of looking at him like, dude, what's going on? You know, like almost in the sense being like, it's the first inning. What are you doing? But he still had a decent first inning. You know, he did let up a walk, but he got the ground out, or the team got the ground out. There was a pop fly and then a strikeout. You know, so he still did decent enough. And same thing with the first inning for the Mets. Oh my gosh, I said the Mets because Jacob deGrom and the Rangers struck us out pretty quickly. There was a fly ball as well. So, you know, through the first inning, scoreless, both pitchers looking decent. Then you get the second inning where things started looking good for the Phillies. There was a pop fly, so that kind of sucked for Derek Hall. But then Nick Castellanos getting a double to right field was real good to see. Nick Castellanos has a lot to prove this season, but I'm not like one of those overly critical fans on him. What I want from him is more so like this play. I want, because we have power hitters like Schwarber and, you know, guys who can go yard pretty much like on a fly in Harper and Turner like that, you know, and even JT can go yard a couple times, or sometimes doesn't even have to go yard. If you remember that in the park home run he had, was that against the Braves? Man, I still remember that was so good. You know, what I want from Nick Castellanos is to sort of fill this role where, yes, obviously I still want him to hit home runs when he can, but I want to see more like this, you know, basically getting those extra base hits, getting on base, you know, and getting those hits that allow him to get on base, you know, sort not necessarily power hits, but, you know, stuff that'll allow for when, stuff that will allow for runners to get on base and all that, and allow for, you know, more scores rather than just the one home run. I hope that's all making sense. Basically, I just kind of want to see, you know, there we go. I want to see less focus on trying to hit that ball out the park every time. Because if you watch Nick Castellanos, one thing people say about him is his plate discipline. And yeah, you know, that's the one thing. That's the one thing I want to see the most from him. Is just, man, I want you to stop trying to send each ball out and, you know, kind of focus on getting on base, or, you know, getting those hits that will allow, if there's people on base, to score while you remain getting on base. You know, that's kind of what I want to see from him, and that's what he did here, because he got, you know, the double into right field, and it ends up working out, because though Bryson Stott strikes out, Alec Boehm comes up to the plate, and man, what a turnaround he's having. It was something that the announcers picked up on. I want to say it was in yesterday's game I heard them say it, but it might have been one of the previous, like one of the 3 Ranger games. They said, you know, from having that, what was it, three error game, and you know, when the fans are booing him, and he was like, man, I hate this place, and you know, they said it, you know, he owned up to it instead of like trying to deny it or trying to find a way out of it. He owned up to it and said, you know, it's just, you know, it's tough to play in this city. You got to have a tough mindset to play in Philly. And honestly, through these first 4 games, he's looked like he's really improving, you know, and he's really kind of coming into his role and coming into just, you know, being a real complete player almost. Now, there's still things to fix, obviously, but, you know, he comes up onto this play and he hits a home run, and that allows him and Castellanos to score. Real good play, puts us up 2-0 at this point. And, you know, I was going crazy. I was like, man, let's go. You know, two-run home run. I'll take that early in the second. You know, let's keep piling them on. Hey, they started doing that. Aaron Nola comes up in the top of no, that was the top of the second. This is the bottom of the second. He comes out, line out, fly ball, strikeout. Pretty easy. Gets it done. You know, and I forget what his pitch count was at this point, but he was looking good. It was second inning. And when it comes to your ace, you expect him to go at least 6. So you're like, oh yeah, let's go. We're starting off well, up 2-0. They've given him the lead, so he just has to pitch a good game. And Jacob deGrom, on the other hand, really starts struggling. We start off the top of the third, and we start with Brandon Marsh hitting a triple to right field, so he's on third. And then we get Trey Turner hitting a triple to right field, and this allows Marsh to score and him to go on to or third base. Sorry, so the score's 3-0 right now. And then on the next pitch, Kyle Schwarber, it's a wild pitch he hit, and Trey Turner scores right there, and he then strikes out Kyle Schwarber, which I'm not gonna be too critical on one guy and then not the other. I want to see sort of the same thing with Schwarber. I know he's a power hitter. I know his whole thing is home runs, but I want to see a little bit better plate discipline, because there are a couple times where he strikes out swinging, and you're just like, I don't know, man. Like there's a couple times you look and you're just like, man, I wish it was different, But we then get JT scoring a double to right field. And then he also stole third, but then Derek Hall hits a fly ball, and then Nick Castellanos goes and strikes out. But still good, We're up 4-0, looking pretty good. Nola comes in at the bottom of the third, 2 strikeouts, and then a ground out. Looking pretty good. 4-0. We head into the fourth. DeGrom strikes out Bryson Stott, who, similar to Alec Bohm, he's a young guy, so he's still trying to find his place more so than Bohm is at this point. Kind of struggling a bit, but, what do you expect from the guy? He's still pretty young. He's still got time to figure it out. And, he has a bunch of other players on this team that we can rely on more. And, and it gives him time to develop, Alec Bohm then comes and hits a double to right field, but then Jake Cave hits a line out. And at this point, they replaced Jacob deGrom. They took him out. It was the top of the fourth, and I was like, oh, man. Having to take your starting pitcher, your ace essentially out in the fourth, that's got to be tough. Should have kept my mouth shut. Brandon Marsh comes in and hits a double to left field. This allows Alec Bohm to score, puts us up 5-0. They intentionally walked Trey Turner, which I didn't understand here. I only say I didn't understand because, I kind of missed it. I saw the double, and then I looked away for a second, and the next thing you know, I see Trey Turner going to first, and I'm like, what the heck? What happened? But they intentionally walked him, and then Kyle Schwarber ends up hitting a fly ball out to left field. So that closes the inning, but, we're up 5-0. What could go wrong? We still have Aaron Nola hitting or doing pretty well. Like I said, I should have kept my mouth shut because we started off the fourth against Corey Seager. Nola allows a single. We get the ground out after, but then Garcia gets a single. Josh Jung, I hope I pronounced it right. Josh Jung, yeah, gets walked. Bases are loaded. And then Jonah Heim, double to right field. This allows Seager and Garcia to score. And then Robbie Grossman hits a home run. And then we get a ground out from Nola. And then it's at this point that Nola comes out the game. So, oh, man, I mentioned it earlier. There's an inning where Nola just always hits this wall for whatever reason, and this was that inning, It's real tough, especially because, you maybe want to chalk it up to being the first game of the season, but, man, it's kind of tough trying to evaluate Aaron Nola's play. It really is. Because he was doing pretty good for those first 3 innings, even though the first inning had a couple of weird pitches, but he just absolutely hit a wall here where it was like the pitches he was throwing just weren't it, And what does that put us at? 5-2, right? No, wait, 5-4. 5-4. And then they bring in Gregory Soto, and he lets up a walk. And then he lets up a single. And then they walk Corey Seager, and bases are loaded again. And then he allows a single, which allows Smith to score, Simeon to third, Seager to second. And at this point, then they're like, okay, well, now we got to take Soto out, and we bring in Brogdon. And then Simeon scores. Seager goes to third, Lowe goes to second. And then they allow a single to right field. Seager scores, Lowe scores. And then they get Garcia out at second. And next thing you know, it's 9-5. Down 4 runs despite entering the inning, being up 5-0. Disastrous fourth inning. Disastrous. And I just remember like messaging my dad going, oh my gosh, what a complete collapse. And he wasn't checking his phone. He was like, the last thing he saw was they were up like 3-4-0, and now they're down 9-5. So we come into the 5th inning, and we're like, okay, well, let's see what more we can do, you know. JT, pop fly, Derek Hall, ground out, Nick Castellanos, single, Bryson Stott, single, Alec Boehm, single, which allows Castellanos to score, so it's 6-9. Jake Cave strikes out swinging. Enter the bottom of the 5th. We get a strikeout, single, line out, and then Brad Miller hits a home run, 2-run home run. And this is when Andrew Vasquez has to come in, and we're down 11-6 now. We start the 6th. Brandon Marsh strikes out. Trey Turner fly ball. Kyle Schwarber strikeout. Then Real Muto scores in the top of the 7th because he hit a triple, and then Derek Hall grounds out, but that allowed JT to score 11-7. And then that was pretty much it, you know. It was just strikeouts, fly balls from there. And man, just couldn't do nothing, man. Just couldn't do nothing after that point. And it was the toughest first game of the season, man. Nola just hit that wall, and you're just like, man, that's tough. You got to bounce back from that. Well, do they? No, they ended up doing worse. I didn't watch this game, but they went down. They went down tough, man. 16-3. They really couldn't get much going. They allowed three scores in the 5th, 6 in the 7th, 3 in the 8th, 2 in the 3rd, 2 in the 1st, and all they got was 2 in the 4th and 1 in the 5th. Pretty bad game as well. I don't know too much because I didn't get to watch this game or really look into it. I'm trying to see at one point that they take out Zach Wheeler. And wait, when did they take out Zach Wheeler? They took him out in the bottom of the 5th. Okay, that's a bit better than Nola at least, but it's still not any better when, you know, they still... Actually, wait, hold on. Okay, well, he did let up 1 home run early, but everything else, it looks like it didn't come off too well. It wasn't until they subbed him out that's when they really started letting things up. So, a bit better of a game from Wheeler, but still not what you want to see out of your aces. You know, especially compared to what, obviously the playoffs are different, but, you know, it's like, how many times do we see, you know, Wheeler go 6, close to 7 at times, you know. Nola at least made it to the bottom of the, or, you know, to the 5th inning. Yeah, not the best there. And then probably the toughest loss me, again, I didn't get to watch this one, but 2-1 to the Rangers in the final game. Like, come on. You know, this one was a bit more closer. They only got 1 score in the 2nd. We got 1 in the 4th, and then we allowed 1 in the 5th, and then just completely scoreless after that, you know. Real tough game right there to lose. They let up another home run, and we scored off of a ground ball. It looks like Castellanos scored, but, like, I don't know. The home runs have not been there for us, you know, other than that Alec Boehm one, I think. I don't think the home runs have really been there for us all too well. We're at least doing a bit better with, you know, that base hitting. But I don't know, man. And then we get to the game I watched yesterday, Phillies versus the Yankees. And, oh boy, was it tough from the start, man. You know, pop fly, strikeout, and pop fly to start off the first. And then we literally first pitch, and this is, I didn't get to see most of this because I tuned in towards the bottom of the first, but Taijuan Walker let up a triple. He then walked 2 people, left the inning Yankees up 2-0, which wasn't the best. He did recover in later innings, you know. There was ground outs. He struck a couple people out, and he didn't get taken out till the bottom of the fifth after, well, he let up a single, but then he struck someone out, and then they finally took him out. So it was a rough start, but, you know, he stepped up and really, you know, really corrected himself, which was really nice to see. But there wasn't much going for the Phillies at this point. We struck out at the top of the second. We got a couple singles, but then a pop fly and a ground out didn't help. But again, Taijuan Walker was, you know, doing well. Ground out, strikeout. But then it's the same thing for us. Strikeout, we get a single, but then fly ball. Ground out, strikeout, and then Taijuan Walker lets up a home run, allows the Yankees to go up 3-0 at the bottom of the third. We have to kind of get something on the board, you know, but Nick Castellanos, foul pop fly. Alec Bohm gets a double to first, but then Derek Hall hits a line out, but Bohm at least gets the third. He could be in scoring position, which he does, because Edmundo Sosa hits a single, allows Bohm to score 3-1. Not too bad, but then Bryson Stott hits a fly ball. It's kind of tough to see. And then, you know, Taijuan Walker still keeps it going. Ground out, strikeout. Brandon Marsh hits a double to left field, but then Trey Turner hits a ground out. Schwarber hits a pop fly. JT gets a single, but they get Marsh out at third. If I remember this play, I think this was the one where Marsh was like halfway to home before he realized he wasn't going to make it. And then he was like, oh, well, I should go back to third. But then he didn't know if they were going to. So he was like, oh, should I go home? And then he realized they were throwing to third. So he tries to get back there in time and just doesn't get there. Real difficult play. A lot of people were kind of getting mad at him, which, you know, kind of rightfully, you know, you gotta have more knowledge of that situation of what to do, but he kind of seemed indecisive, and I think third base coach was like trying to tell him to stay, and he was just trying to decide, and then by the time he decided, it was kind of too late. But it was a real tough play. Could have gone 50-50, you know, so I don't think too much of it. Like I said, at the bottom of the fifth, Taijuan Walker lets up a single, but then he strikes someone out, but then they bring in Marte to replace him. And then Rizzo hits a home run off of him. So now the Yankees are up 5-1. And then a walk. And then he lets up a double. And this allows Stanton and Torres to score. He strikes someone out, but then he lets a single. And this allows Cordero to score. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Then lets up a walk, and finally they're like, all right, let's just get him out of here, and they bring in Andrew Vasquez, who, you know, fly ball, so they get out. But tough inning, man. 8-1 at that point, and you're just like, this is not where we want to be. This is not where we want to be. And it doesn't get any better, because strikeout. Oh, Alec Bohm hits a single. It seems like Alec Bohm's the only guy who's able to hit for this team through 4 games. Derek Hall ground out. Edmundo Sosa ground out. A little bit better of a 6th inning for us. Fly ball, ground out, fly ball. But then can't do anything in the 7th. A line out. Brandon Marsh gets a single. Trey Turner gets a single, but then Schwarber strikes out. And then JT hits a fly ball. So leave runners stranded at that point. Vasquez walks someone. Then there's a fly ball. There's a ground out. There's a single. There's a walk. There's a ground out. So it's still 8-1. And that's basically how the game finishes out. Just a trade between ground outs, strikeouts. Just couldn't get anything going. And we finished the game 8-1. And that's how the Phillies start off the season 0-4. Man, just not what you want to see. Just not what you want to see from this team. The lack of hitting. The lack of the lack of consistency with the pitching, and you kind of just wonder, what does this team have to do? Because if you keep playing like this, you're not going to be competitive enough by the time Bryce Harper comes around. But really not much you can really else say for this team, except, you know, they just got to get the discipline at the plate better. They gotta start hitting the ball, you know, whether it's home runs or, like I said, just getting those singles, those doubles, those triples like they did in that first game where Marsh and Trey Turner got back-to-back triples, you know. And then the pitching, they got to figure something out. We're still waiting for Ranger to come back. I'm seriously hoping for Ranger to come back. And you just got to hope that Nola and Wheeler kind of get it together. And when it comes to Taijuan Walker, just hope he can get it together like he did after that first inning. You know, like just really come through like he did in those innings afterwards. You know. But as far as that, I look forward to covering more of the Phillies on this channel. And when it comes to the rest of the season, I don't know, man. I still have hope that they could get a wild card spot. I still have hope that they'll probably win. You know, either they'll win somewhere to 80 games, hoping it's above the previous of 87, hoping they can maybe sneak into 90. But this team really has to. They really have to get more consistent with it. And they really need to start winning games, and they really got to start, you know, playing to their potential, because like I said, you can't keep playing like this and expect to be in the hunt when Bryce Harper comes back. You know, you got to stay competitive to remain in a position where Bryce Harper comes back, he can propel you to that playoff push, you know, and make that push for the final wild card spot. We saw in the playoffs, man, Bryce Harper can literally carry this team on his back. So, just hoping for the best, you know, just hoping for the best from this Phillies team. And just can't wait for Bryce Harper and Ranger to be back. And hoping for a win in these next couple of days, even as tough as it's going to be. But I believe in this team. I always will believe in my teams. As much as Philly lets me down, and as much as it's always disappointment, I still hold out a little bit of hope. You know, it's just the first 4 games. What could go wrong from here?